Hey guys, welcome back to Release the Craftin'. Priscilla here with another episode of Storycraft. And today I'm making some collage boards to use for the Goblin's Cottage journal that I'm working on. So I'm just using up some scraps. So this is an easy scrap buster. And I'm going to tell you guys a story. And as always, if you have a story that you would like to hear me share in this segment, you can leave your request in the comments below. And I don't say this often enough, but I'm saying it now. If there's a craft that you see me make in this segment and it's too fast for you to catch on to and you want me to like break it down in a tutorial, you can also ask me that. And I just leave it in the comments and ask for a full tutorial. And I will do a full tutorial. I have no problem doing that. It would be my pleasure to do a tutorial to help you guys get all the steps for stuff. I think this one will be pretty easy. But for any other videos I've made in Storycraft, definitely if you have a question and you want to know more or know more about how I made it, just let me know and I'll make a tutorial. It's not a problem. So at any rate, I'm telling you guys a story today. The story that I'm telling you is called Frogs and Diamonds, or if you like, Diamonds and Frogs. It's a story by a French author, Charles Perrault, and it was in a book called The Fairies, and here we go, okay? We're jumping right into it. So, this story takes place in the way long ago, in the once upon a time kingdoms, and it features a lone widow and her two daughters, okay? So she has one daughter, the eldest, who is rude, for lack of a better term, and also kind of lazy, and also kind of ugly. Subjective, but the story says she's not very good looking. But she's so much like her mom in character that they're like as thick as thieves. This is the golden child, the favorite child. And unfortunately for the youngest daughter, who happens to be fair and beautiful and sweet and kind, as they often are in fairy tales, she just doesn't get along with either her sister or her mother, and she actually gets the brunt of the work, and her mom gets so frustrated with her that she often sends her on long, arduous tasks, including fetching the water from a well that's like a mile and a half away. And this is old times, mile and a half away. This isn't get in your car and go a mile and a half down the road. She's got to walk all this way, fetch water, and then carry that water all the way back. And there's probably a well closer by, but this is the one that her mom insists that she goes to. So, she sets out on her perilous, but not really that perilous, it's just a regular, really long walk, journey to the one special well that is the only well her mother will let her fetch water at, with her little, like, regular pail, and, you know, everything is fine. Everything's hunky-dory. She goes to the well, she fetches up some water, she takes a little break so she can have some water herself, and, you know, recover a little bit before she sets out on the journey back, hefting all the water home. And while she's chilling out by the well, this very old, very haggard, very bent over woman comes up to her and asks her if she could have a drink of her water. And the youngest daughter is like, of course you can. I would love to get you a drink of water. You sit down right here, rest yourself, you know, rest your feet, rest your back. I'll bring the water to you. So she goes and gets her pail. She fetches up a totally fresh batch of water for this woman, and she carries it over to her, and she helps her get a drink from the pail. She holds it the whole time so this woman can drink comfortably without stressing herself or getting a single drop of water on herself. And the woman is like, that was very satisfying, you're very kind, and you did that so generously that I will now reveal to you that I am in fact a fairy. And the youngest daughter is like, whoa, okay, cool, I didn't know. But that's a neat thing that I just learned about you. What does that mean for me, though? Because, you know, there's some reputation here with fairies, right? We're not really sure where they stand on the scale. So the youngest daughter wants to make sure that, like, she's not about to end up in some sort of fairy trap. And the fairy tells her not to worry, because what she's going to do, because she's so sweet and so generous, that she's going to make it so that every time she speaks a word, either a flower or a jewel falls out of her mouth. You heard me right. Every time she says a single word, a flower or a jewel will come tumbling out of her mouth. What a gift. And just like that, the fairy says, there's my gift to you. It is done. And she disappears. And the girl sets home with her pail of water. And when she gets to the house, the mother is like, what took so long? And she's already tearing into her because there's all these other chores that need to get done. And she's the only one who will do them because both the mother and the eldest daughter are lazy as shit. Remember, they're just alike. So she's like, what the fuck? Where were you? Why did it take you so long? I've got things that I need you to do. And so the youngest daughter proceeds to tell her everything that happened. She goes, well, I met this old woman at the well. I gave her some water. And then she turned out to be a fairy, and she gave me this gift. Meanwhile, as she's telling the entire story back to her mother, jewels and flowers are pouring out of her mouth with every single word she utters. So the whole time she's telling the story, the mother is just watching flowers and jewels fall from her open mouth onto the ground below until there's a little stack of beautiful flowers and priceless gems at her feet. And the stepmother reaches down, snatches them all up, and she's like, what the heck is this? You want to talk to me about that? And she's like, well, this is the fairy's gift, mother. Like, this is what she gave me. And so the mom's like, okay, well, shit. All right. Looks like our situation's about to turn around. So she tells the eldest daughter, tomorrow you will go fetch water from the well. And when the old lady comes to you and asks for a drink, you're going to give her a drink so that gems and flowers will fall from your mouth as well. And then we will be living large. And the eldest daughter's like, why would I go fetch water from the well? Can you imagine me going to do it? And after some arguing, it turns out the very next day she does go in fact do it. So even though she was the favorite, she did not get out of having to go fetch the water. Mom was a little more determined than that. So the next morning, the eldest daughter prepares to go to the well 1.5 miles away, complaining the entire time because it is so far and she doesn't want to do it. She never has to fetch the water, so why would she have to do it this time? But this time, her mom is like, here, you take our best silver pitcher, you take that all the way to the well, and you give that old woman her fucking water. So after some more bickering, the eldest daughter does finally depart. She complains the entire trip. She takes several breaks just walking the 1.5 miles because she's never had to walk that far before, you guys, and it's really hard for her. And by the time she gets there, she does fetch up some water, and then she proceeds to sit her happy butt down on the ground and wait for the old woman to show up. But the old woman, you guys, we remember, is not an old woman. She's a fairy, right? And she already knows there's some shenanigans afoot. So she's like, okay, I see this. I want to see how truly selfless this one is, because she might have just heard what happened. So I want to make sure. So the fairy this time decides to appear as a beautiful, young princess, like regal-looking queen-type person. Someone who looks like they might be nobility, right? So she shows up. She's in very fancy clothes, fancy jewels, and she shows up all by herself in the woods, which you think would be the first red flag. But when she shows up and she asks the eldest daughter for a drink of her water, the eldest daughter looks at her silver pitcher, she looks at her, and she goes, what, you think I came all the way out here for you? You think this fine silver flag in here is for you? And I'm just supposed to hop to and serve you because you're some fancy lady? Get your own water. So at this point, the fairy's like, yeah, I didn't think you were a real one at all. So the fairy reveals herself again. She goes, hey, I'm the fairy that gave your sister flowers and jewels. But since you were so rude and inconsiderate, every time that you speak a word, frogs and snakes will fall out of your mouth. How about that? That's what you get for being so nasty to me. And the eldest sister goes to complain because she's like, that's not fair. I didn't know you were the fairy. She told me you're old woman. And as she's talking, turns out you guys, frogs and snakes do in fact slither and crawl their way out of her freaking mouth. Which is disgusting. But it happens. So, distraught, and understandably so, the eldest daughter makes her way home with an empty pitcher. She didn't even get the water because she was like, I don't even care about that anymore. There's frogs and snakes falling out of my mouth. She goes home, and when she gets to the door, her mother is there waiting for her, and she's like, well, what did the fairy give you? And when she tells her the story, frogs and snakes fall out of her mouth. And her mother is so ashamed, you guys, that she goes in the house and unalives herself. Yeah. That happens. And for a little bit of a time, the two sisters continue to live in that house. Presumably, they buried their mother. But, you know, one isn't doing anything and the other one is doing all the work. So the youngest child, does her chores. She sets out to go get some more water from the well. And while she's at the well, this time, who so would happen to like chance by and see her there? Well, it's a prince. And this prince comes up and he sees her and he's like, oh, might I have some water? And she's like, of course. So she offers him her water and she starts talking to him. Then, they just start getting into this regular chat. And the prince is trying to take like a drink of this water, but as she's like chatting to him about like the weather and how like things have been and how kind of hard her life is because her mother recently died and her sister's kind of lazy, the prince is just mesmerized watching the jewels and the flowers fall from her mouth, hit the ground, and her like not even acknowledge that it's happening. Well, she's just like, and it's a really nice day today, and I managed to sew myself a new dress, and just blah 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 blah, right? And the prince is absolutely like dumbfounded at what he's saying, like thunderstruck at what he's seeing. He hasn't even taken his drink of water yet. He's just sitting there with like the pail to his lips, being like, what the fuck is happening right now? But the more she talks and the more flowers and jewels fall from her mouth, the more he's like, you know what? She's kind of hot. I'm kind of into this. This is a whole vibe. So he goes, well, hey, since your life sucks so much, do you want to get married to me and come live with me in my kingdom? And she's like, you know what? I actually would really like that. I really would love to just get away from my shitty sister and my shitty life and, go be a princess. That would be fantastic. And the prince is like, great. And we don't even have to get a bride price for you because you literally speak jewels. We're going to be so rich. And she's like, aren't you already rich? And he's like, we're going to be richer. And she's like, oh, okay, well, great. Fantastic. And that's what they do, you guys. They absolutely elope together. They just fuck off into the woods, go off to his kingdom, and they're happily ever after. They're married. That's it. They're done. They're through. Their story concluded. Living happily forever and ever. Well, she continues to vomit jewels and flowers from her mouth, and nobody goes, that's weird and probably unsanitary, and I have some more questions about these, and how valuable can gems be when, someone just speaks them into existence. But, instead of crashing the gem market, on the other side of the world, where she left her sister, realizing that she has been abandoned and no longer has her mother or her sister to take care of her, she just wanders into the woods, crying and lamenting her existence, while frogs and snakes continue to spill down the front of her tattered, raggedy dress, and she dies alone in the woods. And nobody cares about it. And that's the end of the story. What a great story, guys. I had decided, I made a choice when I picked this story that I was going to move away from the Brothers Grimm stories because apparently more of them caused me rage than I originally anticipated. I thought it'd be fun to dabble in the Grimm's territory for a while. But then, I was like, well, every one of these is making you mad, so pick a different fairy tale. And then I came across this one in an Andrew Lang book, and then had to go look into the details of it, because I was like, I've never heard of this story, like, what the heck is this? And it has, some story beats that echo some other stories that I know, so I know it's in that same, relative category of stories, but I was like, what is this, though? Because to me, both options, horrifying. Neither one of these seems like a normal regular thing that I would be like, I'm definitely content to have this be my lot in life. But yeah, as I read the story, I was like, this is first of all hilarious. Second of all, this is a nightmare. And thirdly, I kind of feel bad for her shitty older sister. She was shitty and she had a bad attitude, but I don't know if she deserved to puke frogs and snakes until she wandered in the woods and died alone. That seems like a pretty severe consequence for being kind of a brat, but also not wrong, right? Because if just picture it. You're a girl, you're a peasant girl. You're fetching water from a well. This noble lady shows up. She has no hands, nobody else around her to help her, and she's just like, can I have some of your water? And you're looking at the well, you're looking at her, she's dressed way better than you. She doesn't even offer a pittance, a coin, a copper, a shilling, anything to be like, hey, can I buy some water from you? No, she just goes, give me some of your water. And then you're like, hey, rich person, I don't work for you. Get your own water. Which seems like a very fair response to me in this situation. And granted, she also had been slightly misled by the idea that she was only supposed to give water to an old woman, not a rich lady. Granted, she could have just given her water. She's literally at the well, but she didn't want to be there in the first place. I'm not saying she was, like, good, but I don't think she deserved all of that. But also, if I was the youngest daughter and I had to continuously, like, vomit up flowers and jewels every time I spoke a single word, I would stop talking. I would absolutely stop talking. I don't want random plant matter in my mouth. Not all flowers are edible. And some of them are just disgusting. So, like, you know, like, you gotta taste that. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from her gut, out of her, like, throat, like, into her mouth? Or is it just appearing in her mouth and falling out as she speaks? Like, what are the logistics behind this flower gemstone situation? That's what I want to know. And these were the things that I thought about when I first read this story. And then were the motivations for why I decided to share them with you. Not that I think snakes and frogs would be the better alternative. They're wiggly, they're slimy in some cases. They're also snakes. Like, I can't imagine, like, a snake would be cheerful when it comes falling out of the, like, your mouth and hits the ground. It wouldn't be like, oh joy, I'm so happy to be here. I will definitely not bite you. And are they venomous? Like, what's the situation here? I have so many questions. Also, again, same question about the logistics. Do they start in the belly and come up? Or do they just appear in your mouth? Both are disgusting options. But I kind of want to know. And then, like, what happens if you, like, suppress words? Do they go down? I don't know. I hate the whole scenario. It's icky. It's disgusting. And then just, like, you gotta now wash all these gems because they just came tumbling out of your mouth and hit the ground, so they're covered in saliva and dirt. I don't think this was a good gift. It's not a good fairy gift. You guys tell me, though, what you think about the story, and what you think a better alternative to this gift would be. What fairy gift would you be okay with falling out of your mouth? I genuinely want to know. Very curious. I can't think of any option. All of it gives me the ick. But I will try to think about it by the time I post this so that I can maybe reply to you guys in the comments. But yeah, that's going to be it for me, you guys. If you made it to the end of the video, I appreciate your faces, and I will catch you guys all in the next one. Until then, happy crafting, guys.